Thank you. All right, I want to introduce Lavinia, our EIR. Dr. Lavinia, go ahead.
So our next segment, Startup Showcase, is up. So we are running a little bit late, but the idea is 10 minutes presentation and then 5 minutes questions. First one, Vipula Tailor, MS, MBA, founder and CEO at Sonix Medical Devices. Vipula, are you ready?
Yes, I am. So good evening, everybody, and thank you again, Uli and Ruchi and InnovatorMD for giving me this opportunity to share what Sonix Medical Devices is doing. Just a very brief introduction of myself. I'm a microbiologist, medical immunologist by training. This is my third startup. I have 20 plus years of industry experience, both in pharma and medical devices with companies like J&J, Pfizer, Merck, GSK, and I launched the Prevnar vaccine for Wyatt. So have a lot of experience in launching commercial products and also licensing and merging acquisition type of activities. Sonix Medical Device was formed in 2020. We have been working on this technology for the last 7 years, and we have a bunch of technology patents, and we have the device. I'll share that with you in a second. And we are really excited to get the whole antibacterial resistance, and antibiotic resistance field to shift a little bit. It is tough, I'm going to admit that, considering, everybody wants to give an antibiotic pill when you have an infection. So we are having a different approach altogether. And the innovation actually stems from a real desire of bringing something different and novel in this space of infectious diseases and bacterial infections in specific, especially for countries like India and Africa, where you don't have the hospitals nearby and doctors nearby. So we are looking at developing this technology that can be used anywhere by anybody. And then we have different technology elements to this, which will actually allow the professionals to actually use this as well. So without further ado, I think this group is very, very well versed of what infections and wounds are, can do to you. So I'm not going to go in details, but we are targeting surgical infections, catheter site infections, diabetic foot infections, and also burn infections, along with antimicrobial biofilm. So typically this was where we started our journey, asking the surgeons what they do as a normal practice when the patient goes back home. And we all know the burden of infection when the patient comes back within 30 days, not only just penalties, but also it's really life and death for some of these patients. So we've been able to address that with our device. And this was an aha moment for my team, looking at surgeons and medical practitioners. They do everything right pre-surgery. It is when the patient goes back home, the compliance is pretty much very low, and that causes a lot of issues post-surgical infections. This is just a picture of antimicrobial resistance. I know we have COVID as a pandemic, but AMR is actually going to be a huge pandemic that's coming, and I think nobody can deny that. There's been a lot of publications around this, and this is just a silent, pandemic chart that shows how antibiotics are not working, considering everything else is going on in the world in the infectious disease space. And I just want to show you. Sorry, I'm clicking the slides faster than I was expecting, but biofilm is a huge problem in most of these infections. And when we did our research work, we found two distinct categories: the device-related biofilms and then the tissue-related biofilms. And these two can be treated very, very differently and can be untreated in some cases, and that causes a lot of issues as well. So this is just a global market because all the investors who are investing in us want to see what is the upside for them. And this is, again, we're looking at 10% of the global market. Is about $17 billion, which is not an insignificant amount. So what is the device? The device that we have is actually, it looks very simple, but it's very, very complicated internally. I don't know if you guys can see my device here. It has a wand, and then it has a tablet connection on this. which allows the physician to basically put in the parameters of whether it's a heart surgery or an orthopedic surgery or an OBGYN C-section. The parameters goes in, and we have a built-in AI in there based on all the data that's available that will allow our device to really be very, very sophisticated in treating the patient. There is no pharmaceutical agent at the moment, although with the handheld device, we do have a handheld device which looks like this. This is only a temporary prototype that we use for the clinical studies. Comes with a gel, hydrogel, which has a proprietary formulation that allows the diabetic foot ulcer patients to heal faster and not have any complications related to diabetic foot. So the technology is complicated. We are actually using multiple energy sources in our core of the technology that triggers apoptosis and cell death mechanism in the bacteria without threatening the bacteria that it has to become a mutant strain because it is experiencing any external threats from the body or from the environment where it is. And this is where we actually are differentiating, and a lot of our IP is actually based around that. We have 9 issued patents in 3 different families, and these are multinational patents. The solution is very simple, and this is where I wanted to be very proactive, because you don't want to take up a lot of time from medical professionals in surgery and other areas. We wanted to have a very simple solution: apply the gel, start the unit, and then basically it's done. Each treatment, about 40 minutes, lasts about 48 hours. So the bacterial burden in that area where it's been treated, you will actually have 0 bacterial growth within 48 hours. We have data to about 72 hours, but again, we are being very cautious in submissions of data to FDA. We also have a telehealth component with this, especially for the diabetic foot infections, where the patients are unable to go to the clinic. And as we all know, it takes about 2 to 3 days to get some fever if there's an infection, and then you kind of like go to the doctors. You kind of like are looking at 5 to 7 days time period when this infection can become a life or a death situation for some of these patients. So we are able to actually provide this information to the providers and the practitioners ahead of time as the patients are getting treated at home, so that if there is a need of prophylaxis, they can actually go and intervene at that time. These are some of our prototypes that we actually right now in works. One of the prototype that you see here, smart wearable device and product pipeline, the shoe, it is for the diabetes patients. The other ones are for orthopedic, and the bottom you see, that is the prototype we're developing for DoD right now. And that will basically allow the patient or the soldier to put it on in a war zone and not have to worry about getting infections. And just quickly, the results, a lot of people ask me, is it similar to another chemical component like chlorhexidine on whatnot? Our treatment goes beneath the skin layers into the tissues. Therefore, you can have deep infections in the tissues at an open wound, and this will actually prevent that by having a treatment done for like 20-25 minutes every day. These are other comparison data, and this is our microbiology data from clinical studies that we had done. You'll see the Sonix plated agar plate does not have any bacterial colonies growing there. We got similar data in the lab as well as in the clinic, and we're showing a significant underneath the skin impact as well. So we're going through right now diligence with few strategic partners in the US and also in Europe. And we have a lot of comparative data compared to antibiotics, compared to biofilms, treated with different methodologies, and we actually excel in each of those. And this is our current pipeline that we're looking to roll out, and we are doing this first predicated device for acne because of a strategic partner who's very interested in licensing this, and then we'll roll out the rest as our label expansion on each of those devices. From the regulatory approval, we have had pre-submission meetings with FDA. They're very excited about bringing something like this. I have worked very closely with CDC and WHO to really bring the knowledge of this device to the rest of the communities in Africa and India. Manufacturing all will be done here in the US, in San Antonio, and we already have distribution partners that are going to work with us on distributing this product. So this is just voice of customer. We interviewed a whole bunch of surgeons, administrators, patients, and other customers. And we basically got a very, very, heartfelt, compliments in the way I think this becomes a issue for a lot of patients who have had infection, who have had family members who have had infection as well. So I think in nutshell, we are also looking at reimbursement. Courses are already being defined, and we're actually working with a couple of higher reimbursement courses that will be come in play as well. So in terms of P&L, it looks very, very attractive for the investors. Currently, we are doing a $10.5 million round, which will close by June, and then we'll do another 12 million. But hopefully, we won't do the 12 million because we'll be cash flow positive in year one, which will be next year. So these are our awards and recognitions. We were awarded a National Science Foundation grant. We were shortlisted as a finalist for the SXSW competition in 2020. We are a member of AMR site, also President Macron's group of Jedi Moonshine for antimicrobial resistance. And these are some of our global partners that we are working with right now. And as soon as our products are approved by FDA, we should be able to give these products to these partners, and they will be able to use that in their clinics. I would not be able to do anything without my advisory and consulting team, which are highly regarded infectious disease specialists and also ultrasound specialists, as well as in oncology and also in diabetes. And this is my team, and some of the companies we all have worked at are listed below, but I just want to thank you for the time, and I'll leave it open for any questions.
This was amazing. Thank you, Vipula. There are a bunch of very excellent presentation and excellent product. I'm really excited about it. I work in the hospital, so
thank you.
We need it.
We need it, yes.
So when do you think the FDA will approve? What's the timeline?
So we are going to submit all our medical master device files and QMS systems and everything by first quarter of next year. So we are expecting it approved by middle of next year. So we should be ready to launch this in next year.
Amazing. So there are a bunch of questions in the chat, and I have to check if anybody raised hands. Sure. But Divya, do you want to unmute and ask your questions? Or I can ask. The first one was, can you apply this technology pre-incision, for example, in view of ChloraPrep?
Yes.
And so would you actually consider that to be the only prep necessary?
Yes, so we are actually done, we get the results back by the end of this year, where we are done patients 2 days ahead for every day for 40 minutes, and we actually see no bacterial growth in that area. So the patient is ready to go to a surgical, unit and get surgery. So either if the OR surgeon decides they want to still do another treatment on that day of the surgery, they can still do that. But the bioburden stays low for 48 hours. And I think that should be more than plenty of time to get the surgery done.
And then the flip side of that is post-operatively, if it looks like there might be a surgical site infection developing, the sites are usually dressed. Sometimes it's as simple as steries or dermablime, but other times there's actually tegaderms and all kinds of different dressings that have been applied. Yeah, gels. You obviously need something that can conduct. How does this work with the dressings that are in place?
So we have doing that work right now, and we've seen the same kind of impact through the dressing. So we're kind of really excited about that, because that will eliminate some costs, post-surgical setting. So we will have the data soon, but looks like it is working in that setting as well.
Okay, great. Yes.
Thank you.
So because we're short on time, I'm just gonna go through the other question. Charles Barr is asking, does the Sonix device affect wound healing?
Yes, we have data that shows that we actually recruiting keratinocytes and fibroblasts to the site. Therefore, it's actually accelerating wound healing. And one of the trials and work that we're doing with Air Force here in San Antonio is really working with the soldiers and their models of wound healing to see how fast can we go with that. And that application is going to be very specific to the soldiers, but that will also apply to diabetic wounds as well as burn. And burn, I think, is very interesting because of the biofilm it forms. nothing really works and all the capillaries are shot. So this actually becomes a choice, first choice of preference to do this.
Raj is asking, what are the considerations with targeting the strains of bacteria that are worrisome for complications versus normal flora?
So with the normal, given at that, because these are all very, site-specific locations, this is not a general systemic treatment. I think we have to, weigh in the pros and cons, and yes, you're going to kill the local bacteria in that area, but then they will come back after 48 hours in a treatment. So I think that's something that we'll have to just, work through that. Yeah.
So I think the last one is, could the ultrasound be having an effect on the cellular level as far as optimized wound healing? And there was another one, but I don't think we have time.
Yeah, so it is not just ultrasound, it's the slide, if you recall, the intersection of ultrasound and two other technologies that we have, which is proprietary. It actually is activating both the cellular healing process, as well as specifically sending a signal to the bacteria in that area only. So I think we are getting benefits from both sides. Yeah.